Right. So I forgot to mention the doctor phone call in the previous episode. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was great to see Matt for that last little bit. That's really all I have to say. Anyway, time to get started with the episode. Hello everyone, I'm PapaKenn and welcome to episode 87, I believe it is? 87, yes, of Discovering Doctor Who, and today we're going to be talking about Into the Dalek. Yes, Into the Dalek. Man, I'm being really forgetful right now, and I just wrote this stuff down. But anyway, this episode was definitely a good chance to really for me to get a feel for Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, as just the Doctor in his normal state, not the, like I mentioned in the previous video, the back and forth. He's still going through the trauma of the regeneration and the amnesia and all that junk. So yeah, this time we definitely I got to get a better feel of who Peter Capaldi is as the Doctor, and I like that. But more on that coming up. Let's get started with my favorite parts of this episode, starting with the Daleks are once again a true threat in this show. Now, yes, they were also a real threat, I guess, in the time of the Doctor, but we didn't really, for some reason, that didn't have the same effect. Like, they were one enemy among many, and they were like, just in this sort of comedic opening scene where, yes, they are surrounding the Doctor and shooting lasers at him, missing completely. But, yeah, it's like, it wasn't until now that, it's been a long time, like I would say since the Matt Smith era, that, the Daleks have truly felt like monsters, like they've truly felt intimidating, and this episode brought that back in force. It was so good, so well done, and I really hope they continue to do that with the Daleks. I mean, it's like, a little bit of fun here every now and then is great, but I really hope they keep the Daleks as their true, intimidating, monstrous selves in this series, and moving forward, obviously. Alright, now my second favorite part of this episode, actually building upon that, was Rusty. And I could be wrong here, because there have been characters I thought would reappear, but apparently they're lost to the ether. But I really hope Rusty is going to be a recurring character, because just the idea of having a Dalek that hates other Daleks, whose mission is to destroy all the Daleks, is just a phenomenal idea to me. Like, I'm really, really interested to see what they could do with that, where they could go with that. Will Rusty continue along that course? Will he convert other Daleks to his side? What can be done? Or if he might even employ the Doctor's help some point in the future to maybe try and turn some Daleks to be like him. I don't know, but it's just the mere idea of Rusty and the entire idea around that, I absolutely 100% love it. And yeah, so Rusty was just a great part of this episode, and one that I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. I mean, okay, we definitely got a bit of an homage to episode 7 of series 1 back in 2005 with just the episode Dalek, and Rusty's situation was in a way very similar, like, just strapped in, not able to go anywhere until it was repaired. But, there are so many parallels with this episode. I'm going to hit on more of those coming up, but let's move on. My third favorite part of this episode was Danny Pink. Now, he definitely was a minor role in this episode, but I don't know, I feel like just the amount of concentration there was on him, and the fact that Clara is obviously, romantically interested in him, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him, and maybe finding out what happened with him, or finding out more about his past. Because when they're in the classroom and that brat of a kid asks him if he ever killed someone that wasn't a soldier, and that emotional scene, I mean, that was really powerful. That was really strong. And then moving on from that, the little back and forth of the conversation he had with Clara, and then, you know, it was like he's he had just had the conversation with Clara, and then it like goes back to when he's actually talking, and he's like beating himself up and knocking his head into the desk, and that was just such a hilarious scene. I absolutely loved it, and it really brought me to like his character in a very short amount of time. So Danny Pink, really liked him. I hope that we get to see more of him in this series. And I don't know, I think that's pretty, I don't even really hope, I'm pretty sure we're going to, just because of the way they set up his character, I guess you could say. So yeah, alright, moving on from there, my fourth favorite part of this episode was Clara. Clara, I don't know, I really enjoyed her character overall for two reasons. One, the flirting with Danny was hilarious on the various occasions, including when she was kind of sneaking in on him and watching him bang his head on the desk. That was a great scene. But then even apart from that, she was, by and large, the Doctor's anchor in this episode. How did I write it down here? She kept the Doctor in his place, or she brought him back down to earth. Like, she helped him to see clearly when, you know, he was just getting caught up in himself and caught up in his own thoughts. And that's what, at least in my experience, some of the best companions on this show have done. That's what Donna did with Tennant. She didn't let him pull any crap with her. And it's just like being able to pull the Doctor back down to earth, being able to help the Doctor see beyond what's going on in his own mind. I really like that. Really appreciated Clara. Thought she was great in this episode overall. And of course, as always, Jenna Coleman does an amazing job as Clara. So yeah, that was really good. Now moving on from there, my fifth favorite part of this episode, and I'll be really brief about this one, but Journey Blue, the soldier, I don't have a lot to say because she's, we don't get to know a lot about her, but I just really enjoyed her overall as a strong character, a very human character. Like, she's conflicted. It's like, she's willing to make that sacrifice and, blow up the Dalek if need be. But, at the same time, it's like, she doesn't want to die. And it's just, I really liked her character overall, and I just found it to be... she's another character that I hope might make at least a brief appearance in the future. Because, for a second there, I thought she might become a secondary companion because she wanted to go with the Doctor, but, he has an issue with soldiers, obviously. But yeah, I really do hope that she, again, at least makes a brief appearance at some point in the future, because I thought she was a good character and definitely one that could be expanded upon in, several ways in the future. Possibly. Alright, moving on from there, my sixth favorite part of this episode was, and I forgot to write down her full name, but Gretchen, one of the other soldiers that go along with him. The other one was Ross, and he was there for like all of 30 seconds. But the character Gretchen, I found just as minor of a character as she was, and she was definitely a, very minor secondary character. But she makes an ultimatum. She wants to know, is this worth it? Okay, and she presents her name to them and says, name something after me. And I honestly, I hope that they do some sort of continuity thing where they name either the soldiers or the Doctor or both. Something gets named after her, because I really hope they keep up with that continuity, because as short-lived of a character as she was really strong, and she was willing to lay her life down to, save everyone, which I thought was just absolutely amazing. It's one of those, okay, back in the episode Dalek, when that one soldier sacrificed herself trying to shoot the Dalek and dying, in my opinion, now, as a lot of you know, I hate it when there's the unnecessary heroic sacrifice. This was a situation where the heroic sacrifice was definitely necessary. It's like, if not for her doing that, there's no way that Clara and Journey would have made their way back up to the Cortex. So it's like, what needed to be done, she was there to make the sacrifice, and I love it when that's written properly, and I love it when the actor can really pull it off. And I think she did a great job, personally speaking. But all right, moving on from there, that actually brings us to my 7th favorite part of the episode, and that is Missy in heaven, as short-lived and very short of a scene as it was, which I thought it was interesting that instead of being at the very end of an episode, it cuts in as soon as Gretchen dies. I found that really intriguing, and it kind of makes me question, and this is literally coming to my mind as I'm thinking about it, but the way that the Doctor saved Journey by putting a time capsule around her and saving her just before the ship exploded. What if, again, Missy calls it heaven or paradise or the promised land, or something like that. And what if Missy, whoever she is, has that kind of technology to put a time capsule around Gretchen, just before she died, and then brings her to heaven, wherever it may be, or whatever it may be. I don't know, I just find that, random thought just off the top of my head, but yeah, again, as short of a scene as it was, I really liked Missy. I thought that scene was short and sweet and enjoyable, in my opinion, and it definitely has me ready to see more of her. Maybe longer than, what was the first episode, like 30 seconds long? A scene that's just slightly longer to get somewhat of a feel about her. Because, yeah, I didn't have really anything to expand my theories on anymore, except for maybe just that idea of what if she has that kind of technology. But I'm blathering on. It's time to move on to my 8th and final favorite part of this episode, and it's the question. Well, okay, it's two things. One, Peter Capaldi is the Doctor, and the question, am I a good man? Now, just to lay it out there, this episode has solidified my belief that Peter Capaldi is a very good Doctor. I have no doubt that the rest of this season is going to be amazing. I do find it interesting that and actually when Jill was watching this with me, she pointed this out, but this Doctor is very, very narcissistic, I guess you would say. And it's like, and looking back, reflecting, it's like the Doctor, in a sense, has always been, fairly narcissistic in certain ways, but this one is a lot more blatantly so. Not that I'm not saying that's a bad thing character-wise, but it's definitely something that's presented there. And I don't know, it's just like his portrayal of the Doctor feels real. It feels like, while Matt Smith was able to go back and forth between what's one way people describe him, like a clumsy little cat, a clumsy kitten, and then at the same time portray himself as someone that is truly thousands of years old at the end, or it's like 900 to 1,000 years old. It's like that was really impressive. But Peter Capaldi's portraying a Doctor that has lived those years. This is a Doctor that has to steal a quote from what's the movie? Lethal. Anyway, it's some movie, but one of the characters says, "I'm too old for this shit." And instead, that's basically, how the Doctor is feeling right now. It's like, I'm too old for this. But at the same time, not, because he's so early in his new regeneration. But then also, the question, am I a good man? And that question right there, the way it's answered, kind of, by Clara at the end, I thought was just absolutely perfect. Again, just paraphrasing her here, but she says, "I don't know, but I think you try to be, and I think that's the point." Because good is subjective. One person's good can be another's evil, one person's evil can be another's good. And the Doctor always does his best to do good. Sometimes it's very cold and calculated, like when he gave whatever it was to Russ or Ross, whichever it was, which made the antibodies, come after him a lot quicker. Like he said, he was going to die anyway, but what he did allowed them to find, where basically the stomach of the Dalek was, so that they could escape the antibodies and survive. So he tries to do good. He tried to save the Dalek. He tried his best to, make Rusty a good Dalek. He failed, in a sense, but he tried. He tried to be good. He tried to do good. And as Clara put it, that's the point. Who can say what is truly good, what is absolutely good? But the point is, we try to be, and that's what matters. At least I like to think that. But alright. Okay, moving on from there, it's time to get into my annoyances of the episode. And, I would say... Okay, all of these are nitpicks. I'm going to admit that. All of these are nitpicks, but at the same time, they did bother me while I was watching the episode. Okay, to start with, my first annoyance was the tunnel fall scene when basically the characters jumped in that tunnel and it leads them down to the stomach area. And I don't know what was going on exactly, but the way they shot that scene just felt so strange and so awkward. It was just, I feel like it would have been better off had they not done that at all. Just like, show them yelling as they go down and then yelling as they come out. That would have been a lot better than this like extended 30-ish second scene of them falling and going, ah! It was so unnecessary and, again, just really annoying. Again, because it's an annoyance of the episode. So yeah, that's my first one. My second annoyance with this episode, and this is one that I probably should have mentioned on previous episodes because similar things have happened, but with all that radiation that was supposedly coming out when Rusty had the leak, if all of this radiation is coming out and the doctor says himself that they're all being poisoned, how are there not any consequences to that? Like, shouldn't they, I don't know, maybe have needed to take an injection for something? I mean, one can assume that's something that happens off camera, but at the same time, if all this radiation is getting into them, why wouldn't that have an effect on them? Now again, I know that that's a point that I would ideally bring up on other episodes, like Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, where they're basically in a gigantic area full of molten stuff everywhere, and surely that, if not radiation, would have burned them to a crisp just by being even remotely as near to it as they were. But, this is, in this particular episode, that did just kind of stand out to me because the doctor makes a point to mention, it's like, that they're being poisoned, that it's, full of radiation, and the radiation is getting higher and higher. Everyone keeps mentioning that, but then there's, once it's sealed, everything's fine. So, yeah, I don't know, that's, again, it could just be a nitpick, but it's still something that bothered me. But alright, moving on from there, it is time for my third and final annoyance. And this one is rather vague, I guess you would say, but it's the soldiers, and I guess also the uncle. And this one's hard to describe. I mean, I'm not a soldier, I've never been a soldier, I've never been in the army, but every time, well, with a few exceptions, but most of the time when I see military on the screen on the show, it looks very awkward. I mean, it very much looks like people in a stage play pretending to be soldiers, which is fine, it's television, but I don't know, it just, something always feels off. But probably the biggest issue I have is that the uncle, I don't remember his name, but like the sergeant general guy, the guy in charge, as they're waiting for the Daleks to break through the door, and this is something that really bugs me personally. I don't know if it's a strategy kind of thing, if it's an actual army tactic of some sort, but when, like, a bunch of people are hiding behind pillars, taking cover so they don't immediately get shot, and then one or two people will stand right in the middle, out in the open, holding a gun, nothing to protect them. It's like, I get it that, it's sort of a cinematic thing, but he's the friggin' leader. Why in the world would he be standing there when the Daleks are about to break through and you know that they have really good aim? He had literally just experienced their aim. So, yeah, I don't know. That's something, and I guess that's more direction than anything, but that's always something that bugs me beyond just this show. It's with any show or even movies. It's like, whenever people are, like, almost everyone's hiding behind things and trying not to get shot, that makes total sense. Someone runs out, like, trying to make a break for it. it's understandable. But someone waiting for the enemy to come with no cover whatsoever just drives me crazy every time. But alright, like I said, those were my, I guess you would call them nitpicks of the episode. But if you also have any issues with the episode or some favorites, please do let me know in the comments down below. And as always, say something nice. But moving on from there, it's time to talk about my track of the episode. And it actually, this one came between two songs, and it was fairly hard for me to choose. But the one that I ended up choosing was The Truth About the Daleks, which, especially because of its second half, because that's the music that takes place when Rusty is going through and destroying the other Daleks in this very intense, very sad, and almost beautiful in a way song that just sort of like tears at your emotions while you're watching this Dalek destroy his own kind, or its own kind. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but yeah, it was such a good track, and it just, by far, it's the one that stood out the most. By far, even though it, again, it kind of tied between that and another one. But, alright, that's my track of the episode. Moving on from there, as far as my quote of the episode, I have a joke one, and then I have my actual one. The joke one, which cracked me up, was a line from the Doctor, which was just simply, "Don't be lasagna." That line right there, just, I mean, it was appropriate for what was being discussed, but it's just so absurd that I can't help but laugh at it and absolutely love that line to death. So yes, not the quote of the episode, but honorable mention, I guess we'll say. Now, the actual quote of the episode is one that hit me really hard, and it's definitely one of those references to back, again, in Series 1 in 2005 with Eccleston, the episode Dalek. And it's actually a quote from Rusty. And the quote is this: "I am not a good Dalek. You are a good Dalek." Especially that last sentence, "You are a good Dalek." That harkened back to the line that the Dalek said to the Doctor when he said, "You would make a good Dalek." And just thinking about all that right now is putting chills up my spine and on my arms. It's just, it says a lot about who the Doctor is, about, who the Doctor has become over the years, throughout time, even beyond, especially even in parts that I haven't gotten a chance to experience yet. But yeah, it just, such a powerful, powerful line. But moving on from there, if you have any quotes of your own that you would like to mention, or favorite quotes from the episode you'd like to mention, please do let me know in the comments down below, along with your favorites and annoyances with the episode. Moving on from there, now I think I mentioned this earlier, but I don't have any new theories to really comment on as far as... Now, as for my theories, I don't really have anything new to add on as far as who Missy is. I'm getting more intrigued. I have kind of another idea of maybe a fourth theory, but I'm going to wait maybe another episode or two before I bring that up, just because, yeah, I definitely think I'm going to wait. So moving on from there, as for my overall thoughts on this episode, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Probably for, three of the biggest reasons being, one, it brought Peter Capaldi as the Doctor into what I feel is more of his true form. I got to truly experience who he is as the Doctor. Secondly, Rusty, because I love the idea of a, quote, good guy Dalek out there somewhere that will hopefully return at some point. And then three, it brought the Daleks back to being intimidating monsters. To being intimidating monsters. And that's something, again, that was just missing in the Matt Smith era. I didn't mind the Daleks too much during the Matt Smith era, but they weren't as intimidating as they were in this episode. And I'm so glad they brought that back. Was there anything else? No, I don't believe so. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Discovering Doctor Who. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to what you all have to say down below. Once again, I am doing my best to try and get to your all's comments as best as I can. There are quite a few more recently, so it's hard to stay up with them. But as always, I promise to do my best. And at the very least, again, if I can't comment, I I try my hardest to be able to, at the very least, read your comments or skim over them. It's, you know, it's a work in progress. But all right, everyone, I will see you next time for Robot of Sherwood, or Sherwood. Can't remember how you pronounce it exactly, but apparently we're going to get a little bit of Robin Hood action. So until then, everyone, I'm Papa Ken, and Allons-y!